Hi there, Randy Green here, and welcome to another little podcast. I'm talking about reality and the changes that we are to deal with. First step of it is, of course, to localize and understand what are the changes and what are the challenges and where's our position in all of that and what are we to do about it. I want to go around it in a little bit different manner because this is when we talk about business and when we talk about how to run a business and how to run a company. And those of you who know my background, you know I am stretched out both as part of a licensed psychotherapist. I'm a healer. I'm an author. I have the whole academy, as you know. But prior to that, I was in the business world and I have my background within human resource management, leadership, administration, and all of the ideas of how to run a business onto its most optimal outcome. And that's all what business in a way is about. We have a business and we have all the ones that are working in the business. We have the different layers, the different departments, and it's all like a very well-oiled or not so much well-oiled machine. And the ones that are, whether they're doing the projects or whether they're doing the everyday management or they are the inspirational leader or they are the human resource management that goes in and takes care of the everyday life of every coworker and how they are operating at their everyday business. I had, for some time, I had ideas of actually going in and being a therapist at work. I know others have picked it up later on. That was 20 years ago or something, because I kind of recognize that most of the issues when people go to work, if they have issues from at home, they bring that to work. This kind of idea that we just shut down from our personality and go to work and then become active, all at the work mindset people is not how reality actually is. And it's all about what is reality and how does reality work and see things as they truly are. And that's a difficult journey for most of us. Most people are in their heads thinking about something most of the time, whether they know of it or not. There is always some kind of process going on, some kind of longing, desire. I want to go there. I want to achieve this, and all of these things. And just going completely in mindful mode and be observant of the now and in the now is challenging enough as it is. And learning to administer the human emotional spectrum is also a big challenge, which we are seeing. Plenty of information and material regards emotional intelligence, as well as being in the now, as well as mindfully observe what's going on in your life and act accordingly to the situation and not what you think the situation is, what you interpret the situation to be, what you feel the situation is, and then the choices you have on how to respond. And we know most of the time for some, there are the processes before and they respond in a more considerate manner. For others, it's just a raw reaction due to electro and neurochemical processes, and by that sometimes not so considerate. With that in mind, now I kind of laid the foundation. Please take this from a multidimensional angle. This is not just about the dichotomy of either or just do this and then things will happen, cause and effect. That is physics. We're here talking human emotions, human minds, human processes when we talk about change. And when we talk about change, change is driven by humans, not technology. Of course, humans create the technology and then we can utilize it. But it's not driven by technology alone, which means we're dealing with humans in our everyday lives as leaders, managers, therapists, helpers, workers, assistants, caretakers, parents, partners, whatever label we put onto ourselves, we are dealing with people. This is a world of people. And when we talk about change, there are different psychodynamics that kicks in. The ones that are very innovative, they live in their bubble and drive their innovative mindset into new exploration journeys or new inventions or other things that can lead to some kind of gadget, some kind of technology, some kind of physical thing. And that's one part of change. My aspect when we talk about change, because I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a healer, I'm a multidimensional human being. I live on all levels of what our reality is, from the bottom, very bottom of the oldest timelines to the future timelines. it's all about processes. For me, it's all about processes of change, processes of progression, processes of how do we get where we want to go? What is in the way for getting us where we want to go? What is it that drives us to not achieve our goals? What is, if we then have known working with ourselves, know ourselves first, right? And we work with all levels that we are in psychodynamic, in psychotherapy, and in inner work, and healing work, and clearing work, and in all sorts of adaptation works. And we have learned and learned and learned and learned. And we have changed, but the world has not changed. So we're the only ones that are changing, and someone has to go first, as we know. So that's a good place. There always has to be one that goes first, and then others can follow. Is that one person then going to be a leader? No, I don't really believe in leadership. Leadership leads to sheeple. But there can be inspirational speakers. And we have a lot of influencers. We have a lot of promoters. We have a lot of influential speakers. And that's the first step of the journey. And then we can say, okay, after the inspiration, what do we then do with the inspiration? And that's where we begin to roll up the sleeves and have to think in a different mindset. Because sometimes knowing stuff doesn't always lead to change. Knowing stuff doesn't always lead to a new reality or making things differently. Knowing alone is not enough to drive change, but it's the first step. So in this podcast here, I will create a vision for you. I will create a narrative. I will create a storyline from where you have a frame of reference, because it all begins with when we go in and say, okay, I want to change this. You have to look at what is it that you want to change and what can be changed and all of these dynamics. But we kind of need to know, what is it that I want to change, right? So the first step for me here is to tell you a story. And any good leader and any good way shower, because I prefer to call it a way shower, not a leader, because a leader also have a responsibility. A leader is also the one you go to. It's a kind of an expanded version of a parent. And when there's a leader, there are people that want to be led. And in this line of work, my leadership style and management style is, yes, I can definitely micromanage. I am excessively good at that. But the point being is that when you do micromanage, you shut down people's creativity. They are not allowed to be creative and do things in the way that they do best. So my method of way showing is not to tell people what to do, but to inspire to what to do, to get to the point where people feel this is a good idea. This is a frame of reference I can relate to. This resonates with me. This stirs up some ideas and thoughts in me. This gives me these ideas. And then say, okay, I can do this and this and this, and then come up with some ideas of how this can be done. And there I can be used as ping pong, as a mentor, as a facilitator, which is part of why I have the whole counseling for people that are, it both goes from psychodynamics to high order psychic energetic, insights, the expanded kind of psychotherapy where I use my clairvoyant abilities, my healing abilities to transform energy, to look into the other realms, to activate and to awaken, and all of these different aspects of what it means to be a full, rounded, multidimensional, awakened human being that is capable of whatever you put in front of me, I'll find a way to solve it. So my leader style, if I were to become a leader and were to operate in a mission, just so you kind of know it in the story that we're now dealing with here, is that I see myself as a way shower. I would, on some of the projects on Mars, I would train people to go into different realities. And that's where I have my background when I now create this scenario for you, so you get a little bit of a bigger perspective of what I want to share here. Okay, so we are just envision yourself in any other parallel system that are getting ready to go to a mission. And you are now in the future, you are in a society where the knowledge, it's progressive by foundation. So we're not in these horror sci-fi futures, but the place we are, we can look into the futures of other realms, the futures of other civilizations, the future of other systems, because that's possible. When you are able to expand your consciousness, sometimes it's done by technology, but you always use your consciousness to do so. You always link up your consciousness to look into the realms of other places, which is completely natural due to the laws of energetic and genetic affinity. I'm not going to go into the technology about that. I'm just saying it's possible. And I'm trying here to create a story, not a huge lecture on how this technology works. And I know some of you will right away begin to, how does that work? What does that mean? And then your mind will spiral off. Go back, focus. Focus on your heart, focus on your brain, golden energy, do the 8 unity sign, connect the brain and the heart, and go back in, calm, breathe, be there, be present, listen to the story. The questions may come later. You can investigate that afterwards. Listen to this first, and if you need, then write down your questions, and then you contemplate on it and see if you remember. Okay. So the scenario is, I am a project manager in an advanced civilization, and I am training a team of humans that have multidimensional skill sets. We have got enormously advanced technology. It's a beautiful world. Things are good. We are kind to each other. We work for the highest good of the many. We are taking care of each other. And for us, when we go in and do a mission, or when we go in and work somewhere, we don't do it a personal reason. It's not about what's in it for me. We do it for the highest good of the many. We do it for the work on itself, because we find it interesting to do that work. Transformation of energy. We all know what's at stake. This is the whole universe that's at stake. That's what's important. The goal, the vision is a harmonious universal structure that works within what we call order, balance, and harmony, that is based upon certain laws and principles and rules of engagement, where everybody, due to that acceptance of that harmonious way of doing things, are doing their very best. They're actually 10 times more effective than if you go into systems that are the technocratic systems that runs on technology, it runs on stick and carrot, it runs on service to self, and all of these things. And they price themselves to be very, very effective. But the question is, creating a lot of gadgets and creating a lot of materialistic things and creating a lot of machines and crafts and what have you, is that true efficiency, or is it the ability to transform and elevate and lift worlds into their higher potential unfolding energy units, so that consciousness can sprout and create new spawns and figments that will lead to new worlds that will unfold all of the capacity of the universal structures? Well, that's how we work. That's the efficiency of where we come from. So that's the training. Okay, so we have the scenario of we are in that future system, and we are looking at the timelines that are connecting our system to this galaxy. And for those of you who listen to my podcast, you now know where I am drawing this memory from. Because it is a memory, but it's also a situation, a simulation that's going on right now. So we train via simulations, because you can see what's going on, but you can only see what you have energetic and genetic affinity with. So that means that when you have become a seriously advanced civilization and you have progressed into where there's no ill-mindedness, you no longer have the dark light coding of the timeline event. So in that manner, you don't vibrate with that anymore. You have moved way beyond it. And then you're looking back in time where that still exists. You can only see splotches of it. You can only see little bleeps and bloops and whatever. And if it's really prominent, then it lights up. Then you can see, oh, that's a complete fifth dimensional dark one. So that is visible, because that the massive amount of dark energy is prevailingly present in that vision, or in that realm, or in that section that we look into. If we then look at the thing at large and say, okay, with that understanding, then you can also understand that technically when we are doing this look back in time, we're only seeing the largest amount of darkness. Similarly, when we look into the universe, as we're now doing it in our sciences using technology, there are some stars we can't see, but we know they're there due to the dynamics, the gravitational pull, due to some of the mechanics that are operating around it. They are not visible themselves, but the mechanics in that area tells us, due to the laws and the sciences of this, how we perceive reality, we know that should be there, that is there. It's just a matter of time before we develop technology that is sensitive enough to pick up that level of information. And then it will become visible for us. The same when we look in energy and when we look into previous systems that are caught in the past and on timelines that are connected to the third cycle. And that pulls these systems backwards and backwards and backwards until they literally go into complete entropy and begin to fall into crystallization, dustification, and cease to exist entirely. There is nothing that gets out of a black hole. And once a system runs into the abyss, which is all of the black hole, the sum of black holes, nothing gets out. Nothing. So just people there are some say, well, then we dustify and then we get created as neutron stars, or the dust accretes and then creates stars and galaxies and what have you. Yes, science tells you that, but these systems are void of consciousness. It's just energy units. It still shines, but there's no consciousness potential and no life can live there. And that's why our sector is devoid of energy, because consciousness is located in very few spots, and most of the other areas in our sector, in the dimensions connected to our solar system, are mechanical and technocratically driven, unfortunately. That can be detected too. So when we are looking from outside, looking in, the assessment in the training simulation would be, we're looking at this, we're looking at, okay, we are calculating the risks, the possibility of clearing this, and then, of course, the overall dire situation, that is, should we try and lift up the energies, which we now know the Andromedans are doing, the core, and with that energy, what is the next step of the process then? That we go in and say, okay, we are now infusing the core grids. That means that it will no longer fall into the abyss. Step 1, that's technology. Step 2 will go in to begin to create a new fifth dimensional frequency layer that we call frequency fence. Get rid of that. Create the original fifth dimensional reality radiation fields that connects to the quantum fields of our planet, and then begin to recalibrate that using the time wave continuum. That's also done by technology. Then we go in and say, okay, we had the astral barrier, we had the human emotions that were controlled in their emotions and put into specific type of neurochemical patterns and emotional patterns run by different forms of fourth dimensional, what we call elemental energetic parasite and cube technology that ran specific type of thought programs, institutional programs, feeling programs, emotional programs, mindset programs, whatever kind. It's all run by different ideas. And that's why the majority of humans think the same, feel the same, no matter what culture they're in, no matter what part of the world they're in, all depending on the environment. The environment, of course, ensures that we respond differently, so that these different types of colonizing programs have mimicked a kind of progression. Because if there wasn't a kind of progression, then the original construction and technologies that upholds our solar system would have kicked in and said there's no life left. So now we reset, reboot, and begin from scratch, which we have seen has happened in our solar system several times. The sun goes into these massive cycles where the sun itself is the kind of, the underlying grid of all life that exists in our solar system. We know that. But what we don't know is that there is a lot of what we could call sensing technology. And now you're beginning to think in nuts and bolts. Don't. This is so advanced. It's holographic energetic technology that runs on something that is dematerialized. It is changeable, it's adaptable, it is transformative, and it changes all the time. It's not one kind of thing. It can flux in and out of reality dimensions. It can be manifested, it can flux out and demanifest, and just go back to code systems. It comes to life when it's necessary. It goes out of manifestation when it's necessary. So this is a much more advanced type of technology that you have ever heard of or ever know what could be. So in that manner, don't go there again. Focus on, okay, don't think typical human technology. Think advanced technology, not what you've seen in movies. Just scratch that, see all of these ideas turn to dust, and just to listen. Again, I know I got a very strong voice instead of having this very mild and kind and caring voice, which I should. But right now I am up in energy. And when I'm up in energy, I get this very strong energy coming in that drives for change, that drives for mission, that drives to do what needs to be done. And these are the psychodynamics. So first you have the whole assessment, and you're looking in and you're understanding that things have a specific way of working. And we know the sun, which has now gone into that modality, the sun has now gone into its transition process. And when it does that, then it begins to recalibrate. It begins to take away everything that's been created that's no longer in alignment with its original default settings. And that is what our sun is doing right now. That affects the grid of our planet. That pushes everything up to the surface. That's what's called the Newground cycle, where everything that needs to be cleared out on all timelines are activated. And then the ones that can will clear it out. And once they clear it out, they will regain their memories. They will regain who they are. And they will begin to work in alignment with the transition dynamics of the sun that fuels the racial grids, that fuels the planetary grids, that fuels the solar system grids. And by that, we will get all of these infusions. And these different layers of the grids are the ones that should run naturally into our biofield, our emotional field, and our mental field, aka our biofield, that are made of the reality field energies, the vibrational field that are connected to the dynamics and the resonance system of the sun, and the radiation field that are connected to the galactic levels of our universal structure that we're a part of, and the whole unity field that are connected to the galactic, to the core of our universal structure, including the core of the galactic system, the core of the solar system, and the core that we are in ourselves. That goes with the core of our reality field that we are part of. So when we're looking at things from the outside and looking at these different aspects, it is clear, and it was clear from the get-go, that the technology that runs this system is whack. Everything here is whack. That's the first most important assessment, going in and looking from outside. And I will use the analogy here of a fantasy land where you are living in a land where things are prosperous and you have technology and you have created this harmonious world, and you're looking at another land on the same planet, and you know you're depending on each other. This is, if that land falls, well, then eventually it will affect the entire planet. So there's no way around. You can't just abandon it and say, that's your problem. No, we are all interconnected. So there's not such thing as your problem and not mine and just write it off. There is a kind of responsibility going on there, and that's for the highest good of the many. And that is that if one nation is affected by it, it will affect the others. So with that understanding, there's, of course, that's what drives the mission. The understanding there's no way around it. It's not about what's in it for me. It's about, if we don't do this, something will go terribly, terribly wrong. And people are saying, well, that's not motivating. I don't want to go there by that. I would rather go there thinking everything will be good and fine. And that will make me feel more good. That will make me feel more comfortable. You know, there are different peoples, and that's part of what it means to be a wayshower and a leader, or just think about Moses for that matter, leading a lot of people across the desert and all of these different aspects and what they wanted to do and not to do. So we have had a lot of exoduses going on here, and we know the psychology of that, and we know the different ways people operate and respond in these situations. Or just more recently, pick any movie, right? Okay, so with that analogy, and we're saying you are making assessment at home, you are looking at pictures, you have had consultants that traveled there, they have explained what it is, what they have seen, what they have experienced. You have put in drones, you put in probes, you have investigated and always informed. And you have all of this material, and you look at it, and you create a simulation from it, and you begin to run not the DTB bot or whatever, or AI, but similar, you begin to run simulations where you say, okay, we put in all of these parameters, as in kind of all the numbers into the machine, and the machine will crunch the numbers and come out with possible outcomes. And I'm saying it here in a very human way because it doesn't work that way. But this is the best way I can explain it to you. It happens just from a blink of an eye, and then all the prospective timelines will come, and then you can blend in your consciousness and see, okay, how does that type of consciousness affect that type of code stream and that type of possible future? How does that type of consciousness and onward and so forth, and go in and see, okay, if we do this, then that will lead to that outcome, because consciousness and energy drives realities, not the other way around. So if there's no consciousness and there's no life forms, there's no reality. It goes dormant. That's the kind of technology we're talking about. I said it needs consciousness to be fueled. If there's consciousness, it comes to life. If there's not consciousness, it goes dormant. It resets and reboots and start all over. So consciousness can come in due to the laws of energetic and genetic affinity. So the simulations are, of course, okay, how do we maintain that system so it doesn't reboot? Because if it reboots, that's kind of a complete scratch. Clearing of everything that exists there will then be literally, as we've seen it when the sun has done it before, that changes the entire solar system. Planets have ceased to exist, and new planets have arisen from it. And they're uninterested in that not happening here due to many different timelines and sectors that are connected to our solar system, because it's a very ancient hub. But it might be necessary. But until then, all attempts must be taken to figure out, okay, how can we do this? And there were many different attempts from the benevolence and the benign zone all the way up into the 1990s and the beginning of the 2000s. And then it all shifted into, because of the parallel universal matrix races and the different military projects and the human greed and yada yada and what have you, and they decided, yep, now the momentum, the collective type of energy is now changing so much into the older types of energies that we no longer can be here due to the laws of energetic and genetic affinity. So if you want the benevolence to come back, we better get started working with the type of energy that allows them, due to the laws, to be here, because they can't be here as long as we are not creating an environment from where they can be. As I told you about, that reality fields have a specific energetic setting. We can change it into something, but we can also completely ruin it, which we are on the path. And the benevolence, they don't participate in what we could say worlds that are completely falling apart and are going into their complete decay and completion cycles. There's no point. It's about momentum. But since when we talk about galaxies and we talk about the larger picture here, it's about, we go from the Andromedan system and here going in and looking in and saying, okay, we're connected. So we're kind of obligated, whether we will it or not. And for now, we'll do whatever we can to figure out, okay, of course, the easiest way will be that it all just reboots and begin all over. But the problem is here, the original technology doesn't work as it's supposed to, because of the colonizers and the Dracos and what they did here 15,000 years ago. They ensured that this type of reality could be created, and by that damaged some pretty important core technology. So now you see there's a call for something that's 10 times more important to why we're here. So with that in mind, then there's the preparation. Okay, we go in, we assess, we know what we've got in intel, we know what we're probably dealing with, and we train for it, and we select the most proper type of consciousness that will lead to the most proper type of outcome of the timeline that we are choosing to work on. And then we get here. And then it's just, I'm just breathing. And then we get here, and then it's just 10 times worse than any of the intel we got, because of the tampering with the original technology that we, in the other end, in the future, we're still utilizing the idea and the understanding of the original technology still being functional, just to get here and we perhaps assessed, well, 30% is not working well. And just to get here and see, no, it's actually 10 times worse. It's 60% of the original technology that's not working. And the other groups are now putting in other technology, the event program and overlays and hollow inserts and all sorts of things that are now making things 10 times worse, because our whole world is turning transhuman. So that's much, much worse than what we anticipated. And that is, of course, being sent back as intel. That's been some of the things I've been doing, not by words, but by scanning and the direct transfer of information by what I experience and what all of my senses and all my layers of all my energy fields detect and interact with are being sent back as intel of what's really going on here. And it is worse than any of us anticipated. And with that mindset, then suddenly being here and all of the other things that have come in, most of us that came in, we've got stripped of our original mindset, put into bodies that were not our own, and all of that story, that's a whole other story. So that's already there. The mission was kind of already put in jeopardy just by entering here on false information, and the whole simulation and training from back home were insufficient. Step one. So that's where we kind of are. So just to end this here with this narrative and that story, because from here I would like you to contemplate, because I have, of course, further in the analogies and the frame of reference and, okay, how can we do? What should we do? And if we look at the different dynamics of how can we then change and what should be done? And these are all processes. When we look at it, when you work with businesses or a project or whatever you are, the most important thing when you work with a team is to give a vision. It is to say, this is what we're working for. And my vision is unfortunately not a pleasant one, but it could be if we work for it, but it's worse than we could ever imagine. If we come into that imaginary country, we come here and we look at this and we say, this is just not what we train for. So the first is the adaptation and the learning what's going on and how do we adapt to that. And that's been my life. What do I need to learn so I can figure out how to find solutions for this? What's going on here? What's the assessment? What is it then? And then the whole kind of, I only got one lifetime and I need to get all of this job and that and that and that and that and that and learn so much in one go. And not an easy way of doing it via simulations, but actually sitting on a chair for years in a slow school system, working in businesses with slow moving humans that literally gets nothing done. And then you have this person like me, my boss used to say to me, Randy, slow down, you make the rest of us look bad. Yes, because everybody's just so slow. Okay, so with that, if people were really up to gear, but I know, I get it. The way that the counters have played me for the last 10 years after I fully woke up and began this project. Yeah, I get it. So the first meetup, the first assembly that I will do at some point, will not meet up physically. I will do a lecture for now because we're just playing low key here. We're creating a narrative. We're creating a storyline so that we can create a pattern of change. And in my course material, the whole changemakers, I have talked about what are patterns of change, what are the dynamics of patterns of change, how do we instigate change, how is the psychology behind change, what's the psychology behind this work that we need to have, and the laws and the sciences behind the transformative energy system is part of the transition sciences. The original consciousness laws that goes with our reality field are also part of the template science courses. So right now I made the whole academy where I can begin and go in and say, as a facilitator, as a way shower, all of the study material is now ready and people studying their own pace and whatever they need. But now we begin to look at the project as in kind of the project, the Future Humanities Timeline project, which I have made a Google site on, and go in as a project manager. And I've now begun the first step of the vision that goes with this project. And the vision is, for those of you who are there, this is not a vision about going in, if I do this, I'll feel good. If I do this, my life will be better. If I do this, the world will heal. If I do this, everything will be good and fine. That's not the vision, people. The vision is from a completely different aspect. It's from a completely different angle. It is from the vision that we are part of a larger unity, a whole, a universal structure that is coexisting with another universal structure, other galaxies. And we have lost the oversight of our reality field. So the first step of the mission is education. What is it that we need to learn so we get up to snuff, steep learning curve, up to speed with what is actually this reality? There's so much information out there that's inaccurate. We have been bombarded with all sorts of levels, but we can say one thing is now for sure. It's no longer being put in as hoax or some kind of weird theory, ideas, what have you, that there are alien technology, there are UAPs, there are UFOs, whatever we can say these are the same, but they are different classifications. And we now know that. It is publicly known now. No, it's no longer laughable material. Now it's being implemented into society. And why has that come? Because the transhuman agenda, they are pushing for becoming visible from the fourth dimension within the next 5 years. And to do so, they are selling humans technology because they know humans want technology. What we are, quote unquote, trying to push from the Andromedan system is consciousness, awakening processes, and the ability to know, to learn, and how to operate in harmony and order and balance with the reality field you're part of. This is not spirituality. This is reality sciences. And that's the first step. We need to become scientists and different forms of operators that can take on different tasks. And I'm not going to be the typical manager micromanaging you. I'm going to be, if I am to take a role, the inspirational project manager that goes in and say, this is the goal, this is the vision. How are you going to solve it? Show me how you're going to solve it. Not just by throwing a lot of ideas my way, because I can come up with all sorts of ideas. I don't want your ideas. I want your action on the ideas. I want you to go in, create the ideas, create a project site yourself. Go in, list all of the ideas, begin to make YouTube videos of how you are going to implement that to change the world. I want you to do what I've done so far. Begin to educate people, work with your visions, create your project site. Google site has plenty of capacity there for free. Make some kind of inviting project site that you can get other people engaged in, and then begin to figure out, okay, is this implementable? If I go in and create this idea, how can I implement it? And that's some of the things I want to talk about in some of the future podcasts. Right now, I have this energy. It might be taken away from me tonight. And tomorrow it's gone. That's that's how it goes. And some of you that are doing sessions with me, you can have this talk on a one-on-one where you talk with me and say, okay, I'm trying to do this. Why is it not working? I can be your mentor. That's what the whole counseling is also for. And the randygreen.one, I'll go into consulting and some of the other aspects that's more business-like, more for therapists that are working with other people, a different kind of psychotherapy, and all of the other things that is in the making. This will take time. So the first step of this one is, of course, to listen to what I've said here, try and envision it and understand the vision of what we are doing is not a goal, it's a process. This is a process of we're looking at things and not get trapped in the maze, not get trapped in the rabbit holes and get lost in the details. This is about being able to both be in the details, be in the mix, being everyday life, and then lift up to the helicopter perspective, look at the maze, see what's going on, clear out your energy system, get back on the drawing board, create some new material. Does it work? Does it not work? Does it float? Does it not float? This is project management. This is project iteration. You know where we're going, and that is we need to solve this world, the issues of the world, however it shows itself. And your capacities will tell you where you want to specialize. What is your special angle on the project that you have? How can you, with your ideas, go in and create something that will lead to change? What is the dynamics behind change? I'll talk about that in the changemaker as well. And what is the demand of you to instigate and initiate change and make it implementable? And how do we get other people to follow that idea, not as followers or sheeple, but actually go in and say, oh, I like that model of innovation, creative thinking, new ways of doing stuff, new ways of educating people, really get things out there, because we have a momentum here with the acceptance of the UAPs. And then go in and say, okay, what's the next step of that? And begin to communicate with the ones within the communities, the ones in the know, and all of these kind of things from outsiders. Begin to work as individuals thinking, I can change this, I can learn, I can adapt. And because I can learn and because I can adapt, then I can instigate change. But what are these changes and what does it lead to? So there's a lot of processes that needs to be done. Self-reflection, and not just the blindsided fool that like the tarot card number 22 goes out over the cliff and doesn't know anything and just go like an elephant in a china shop. We don't need that. There's been plenty of that. So for now, what I will give you until the next podcast is, okay, begin to play with the idea of you becoming a change maker. Begin to play with the idea that the next step of your awakening process is no longer about you and your processes. That's part of it. That will continue. And it's no longer about helping others. Now it's about reality. What do we need to do now, people, to change this world so that whatever is going to happen, we are ready and prepared so that we can meet the requirements of the other dimensional races that are clearly making themselves known, first via the technology and then via their physical presence. And once that happens, we need to be ready to meet whatever they will come with so we can see what they're actually playing, what is their agenda, because they have been playing behind the scenes for so long. And when they finally show themselves, well, that's the end of that 100-year, multiple timeline touchdown processes they have been doing in our reality field. They're not coming in barehanded and for first time. They are showing themselves because now they created that grid, that momentum, that technology, that these human communities, the hybrid races, everything, so that the collective energies can now carry their gene code, as I began in this talk. That's why the benevolence can't come in, because everything is now changed according to these parallel universal matrix races and their gene code structures. They have for now pulled out, but they will come back. And it will begin with the androids, of course, because they don't want to be in contact with the humans more than they necessarily have to due to the energetic and genetic imprinting that happens when you're a higher dimensional being. So with that understanding, I have here seated in some thought forms, and until next time, and whatever I will come up with, I hope that this energy will remain. If it doesn't, I will work with what is in here and then I will make it happen again somehow, somewhere. But the most important thing is that you begin to think about what can you do. I've been thinking about this for 20 years now. Everything I've done, the whole academy, has been from the first step, the first tier, education. Education, 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 learn and adapt. Education, learn and adapt. And what do you do with that knowledge? How do you implement that knowledge? How do you instigate the processes that will lead people to implement it as a lifestyle, as a 24/7 multidimensional psychological structure that constantly keeps them in the loop of all of the information layers of our reality field and not slipping back into the Truman Show, but constantly and persistently are operating outside the Truman Show, consciously, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, physically present here, but every other layer of us is on guard, is vigilantly, diligently and observantly part of all of the other realms and all of the energies, and are in a constant flux of transforming whatever is going on in our reality field. And that's the first step. And I think that I've done my very best so far. Okay, thank you.